Hello, my name is Ben Luna. I currently work with all grassroots organizers, totaling to about 300,000 New Mexicans and about 10 organizations. We sent about 300,000 responses to legislators last session, so it's not just a dormant email list. We are heavily involved and effective as a united New Mexico. So I have this typed out, but I want to get this on film as well, and you'll kind of see some pictures interjected in the video edit. So this is pretty much just a little recap of the past few years. And so the reason I wanted to make this short video is to explain everything that has happened within the state over the past few years. You probably haven't heard much about it due to censorship kicking in full effect after 2020. So I started from the lockdowns. There were spontaneous rallies, which we had to call peaceful protests, due to our governor attempting to shut down our First Amendment rights, along with businesses, churches, and schools. And many of us say the best thing that has come from experiencing tyranny from our governor is that it's brought a lot of us out of complacency and together. During the 2020 lockdowns, there was something that started in New Mexico that was actually a part of a national movement and very much a God movement. Constitution Alive classes started with Amy Barela, and she was hosting Rick Green and David Barton curriculums online. And I didn't hear about these courses until we had already had a few peaceful protests against the lockdown. And as you can see, my county chair sent this email February 25th, 2021. I took one day of the course, but then started watching the videos on my own. And then I started hearing about how pastors with the Black Robe Regiment led their churches to war during the Revolutionary War, and they won. I started to hear about Black American heroes that were removed from history books. And then I had too many questions that needed to be answered. But again, this was happening nationally and spreading like wildfire through churches of multiple cities. And why? Because we were trying to learn how to defend ourselves, our property, our livelihoods, and our way of life. And so I recorded myself when our church was having 3 days of prayer and fasting. And I said, I feel like God wants me to travel the state similar to what they did in the old days. I didn't know what to do or how to do it. I just did it. By the time we started the 33 county tour, I had met some great organizers like Sarah Smith. Sarah Smith had coordinated the first statewide protest in multiple cities against the mask mandate. And she, as another citizen, was first a stay-at-home mom and simply homeschooling and enjoying life, but knew she had to do something. So Sarah Smith and I first had a protest in Cloudcroft where I spoke what I had been learning through David Barton, the famous speech at the Constitutional Convention by Benjamin Franklin, giving God credit for where they had come and telling all, why would we attempt to do without his providence now? Amy Barela attended that event, and almost every event I had after. So let's go to the tour launch. Amy provided all the sound, stage, orchestrated getting the crane to hold the flag, the vendors, and all I had to do was show up and speak. Sarah Smith came as well, and it was the start of something that would require a ton of work, time, gas, road miles, but I now call it the People's Campaign. I never knew what campaigning looked like until 2021 and 2022. But it's been exactly that to present day. So I knew I needed to go full time, buy all of David Barton's material, and I needed to know the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and American history more than any candidate to hold them accountable. And I'm still on that mission. So fast forward a little, we end up booking David Barton for Alamogordo to come speak. And that was done by Amy as well. But we also booked Chris Ann Hall and her husband JC. And this one event holds a ton of value for me. Sarah was still there at the end of the 33 county tour, Amy still helped with the sound, but there was someone I reached out to, and that is Steve Pearce. I had heard about him, but never had the chance to talk with him. So Tina Zhuik, who I had met through the 33 county tour, orchestrated the call. And I pretty much told Steve what God had called me to do, and that's bring the church out of complacency and to show them what their involvement should look like and how not to become like the Church of Germany during 1945. He gave me his own thoughts on the matter with history of what happened in Germany and quoted some statistics of church voting percentages. And after the phone call, I later told him he should speak about what he told me at my tour finale, because people needed to hear about it. People needed to hear it from him. And he was unannounced on the flyer, but many others were invited to speak as well. And I wanted everyone at one event to see who was who. Well, Steve spoke after many who spoke before him. And those that spoke before him used the platform to make attacks rather than talk to the people in attendance, and they lost self-control. Steve got up and spoke to the people, kept his composure, and spoke about the information I asked him to speak about. And let's fast forward to the primary convention. This is something I've told my pastor about. At the convention, I was honored to speak at the morning prayer, but later Steve spoke and had a PowerPoint to go along with his talking points. And these were talking points I've used because God called me to speak on them. It was material from David Barton and what the church's involvement should look like at the local level. And in front of all the state delegates, candidates, and SCC members, the very message I was called to tour and speak, Steve Pearce spoke. But in more details of what I was already learning the past year. Why is this important? One reason, it's a God movement nationally. Courses and information of our founding in high demand, but also truth of where the church is at spiritually, and where the church has been concerning involvement, and where the church needs to be, and how we get God back in every place of our nation he was removed. So this culture allowed me to grow, and currently I'm working with 2 national platforms with national influence, along with helping my neighbors with film, photos, getting their voices heard with documentaries for our local businesses and industries. Logging uncanceled, oil and gas uncanceled, and currently live on Rumble, ranching uncanceled. That is why I say Steve Pearce and Amy Barela for head of the GOP. The foundation has been established to do exploits for God and country, and from LEXIT, Latinos exiting the Democrat Party, I endorse both Steve Pearce and Amy Barela. We have fruit to show for it at the grassroots level.